I'm still freezing from last night helping Luciano pick up that Honda Sabre. God, did it get cold at the end of the day. And I got up this morning and it's even colder. So we do have some things to paint. Start the day off with a smile. Had a real feel today in Rutherford, of course. Go to Rutherford, New Jersey. The real feel is 10. So we're going to wait a little while before we do any painting outside. It is supposed to go up into the low 20s later today, but it's really brutal right now. It's going to be difficult to paint. But luckily, all through this FZR project, we've been able to do some good sequencing. We've been lucky on a lot of times that it's snowed or rained in the day before or the day after, and it's allowed us to get an awful lot done. This project really is way ahead of schedule, in my opinion. Coming into the shop, of course, on a day like today, sequencing up the work. We're going to try to stay inside as much as possible, and that's pretty cut and dried. It's really cold out there. So we do have a couple of things to paint, but we're going to wait. We're going to have coffee. We're going to relax a little bit. I have a couple other things to do, and then we'll get ready. The primary thing today is I want to get started sanding the wheel. I have paint a stripe on both edges of this. Steve wanted to add a stripe here. And we have this part ready for the black, this part ready for the clear. So we're going to try to sequence up from these parts, sequence up an efficient day of work. But it's always good on a day like today, 18 degrees. It's much more fun sequencing up work in the shop than work in the garage. So the first thing I want to do is prep up these, get Steve's parts all prepped up. This will be a relatively simple job, but it's warming up a little bit. It's almost 20 degrees, so in another hour we'll be ready to paint. God, it's like a summer day here. Anyway, what Steve wanted was to put this stripe, and let me make sure, yep, this is the tape. We're going to make this, and I'm going to backmask it all up and have it ready to paint. And this will be a relatively simple job. Anyway, we always use the fine line tape for the edge. Now, this is going to set the tape. I cleaned everything with Windex. Always a nice thing about paint, very easy to change your mind. Once I get that piece in, and that's the part that's going to get a white stripe, I should be able to, I don't know if I am going to be able to, but I should be able to airbrush this, even in the back room there, where if it's what do you mean if it's bitter cold? It's freezing out there. It's crazy cold out there. All right, now of course we'll tinfoil backmask that up. And that's going to be getting the stuff all ready to go, so once it warms up, we can paint. What I'm trying to show, I just take a piece of 1000 grit, rough this up right up to the edge of the tape, so we get a good bond to the paint itself. Down here even, where it's going to be, you won't even see this, but we definitely don't want to just go over shiny paint. I want to have a little bit of an etch on it. And 1000 grit usually works just perfectly on a thing because it doesn't leave scratches, and I can do that either with the airbrush or a spray gun now. Now by having this all prepped up, I just hope it's going to warm up. I really I'm really getting sick of this cold weather, to be honest. I'm ready to, and Steve is smart enough. He's headed out to California, so I wanted to get this done for him, maybe even have him pick it up before he heads out. Okay, so this will be the most convenient to do with the airbrush because I can do it in a back room. I don't even have to be outside to do it. And when it's this cold, even minutes outside are not a lot of fun. I just wanted to add something. Luciano, I think, maybe I got the story wrong, said he picked up an airbrush in Harbor Freight for under 20 bucks. I may have to get an extra one, just to have some spare parts. Just because I like shopping at Harbor Freight. Always a lot of advantages to painting with an airbrush, on a day like today especially. But well, that was good, and we'll get 3 coats on that, about a half hour apart, but it's warming up a little bit out there. I didn't think it was going to warm up this fast, probably up over 20 degrees now. I want to get some black on that, and then put everything aside to dry for a while, and work on the wheel. Trying to line up projects, trying to sequence things up 3 jobs at a time, actually 4 jobs at a time, and you never know how a day is going to play out. So whether it's outdoors in the sunlight or here under the fluorescent lights, the work we put into that part, I think is going to add a nice, a very nice extra little touch to our restoration. I want to get one more coat of white on this for Steve. There's a thing you can see happens whenever you paint white over red. You do get that pink look. And I'm letting this dry right under a heating vent. Hopefully that, I don't want the penetration of the thinner to go down into the red and make me a problem. After being outside in 18-degree weather, there's nothing is going to taste better than that cup of coffee. Believe me, that is going to be a special cup of coffee. So now, in sequencing up this day, I hope that's not Luciano calling to go pick up another bike. I guess Luciano's got enough bikes around for the next couple days anyway. Anyway, the next part of this project is, now that Steve's stuff is drying, and by the way, the thing with painting white over red really can be a terrible thing if you're looking to paint a lot more than a stripe, because what'll happen is you put on 3, 4, 5 coats of white, and someday the next day it'll just turn pink. It's an unbelievably bad thing. You always want to paint the white first, except in this case, I put on 5 coats of white already, and it's decanted white. It's not just ordinary white, so I think it might be Steve's lucky day here. But anyway, we're going to pick up the next part of this once I finish up my coffee. I want to get some sanding and get started sanding this wheel and prepping it up for what will be this big repair that we're going to do as a separate. I'm going to try to maybe make a separate part of the video about that. This wheel, it will be a little bit different than doing the front wheel because it's basically polished already. So I don't have any of the real heavy tool grinding, but I'm going to have an awful lot of hand sanding. So I've traded one devil for the other devil. I wonder if my friend is wanting a cup of coffee out there. So the first step on this project is, and I'm looking back and forth and thinking about this, what I did, I took a whole bunch of 220 grit sandpaper. Let me just show this, because what I wanted to do, I wanted to, either it's 220 in DASA, I wanted to try, see what this is that I have to deal with. This part has been polished, but there's still pits from the casting, because it's a cast wheel. When it's rough, it looks like this. When it's polished, you still have those little flaws. So I wanted to see, just as a little test, before I do anything, I'm trying to do as much of this as I can by hand. and I may have to do it over the course of a few days. But what I basically want to do is get as many of those pits out as I can. The issue is, if you sand this with a grit that's too rough, you wind up needing more primer than necessary, and I don't want to do that. And if you don't sand enough of them out, I mean, if you use 1,000 grit, you'll die of old age before it's done. So I want to see, just doing my little test in real time, of course, just to see if the 220 is going to be a good starting point. Yeah, it looks like that's it. And 220 leaves a pretty nice grit, a pretty nice grippy, rough surface for that primer to stick to. So I guess number one, we're going to figure out the sequence I want to do this in. And I've been thinking about this. I've talked about it so many times. This has been here since I bought the motorcycle. And when Luciano found this bike, and that's a long story, but he found the bike in the middle of the winter. We went and picked the bike up. It was not far from his house. Paid the guy, and he said, "Let me show you how fast it is." And he went up and down a block, and he was smoking a cigarette with no helmet, and it was probably 30 degrees and it was ice and snow. And when I got the bike home, I knew this was there. He felt so happy to get rid of the bike. He gave me an extra set of body work that was, he must have been in more than one accident. But he was so happy. I guess he was happy to get rid of this. It had flames on the gas tank, among other things. But one of these days I'm going to go and find those old videos. They're all on old flip videos, so it's hard to convert them. So Steve pays a visit. That nice little adapter's going to go in.
Look at that. I got to put a little spring there.
Yeah, I don't have any springs.
I got springs.
I'm sure you... Oh, look at that. Come on. Oh, the price just went up by one Gavilta fish. Now, if this doesn't marry up, and it's probably not, give me the dimensions, and I'll make you a bracket out of that real nice aircraft aluminum I have.
This bracket doesn't move?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but if the height...
Oh.
If you need to space this up, like on my bike, I needed one like 2 inches. I have the aluminum already. We'll make it and polish it. And you can take your heat gun.
I'll give you this.
It'll come right... No, don't you scratch that. That belongs on my Ferrari. This is actually a nice muffler. That'll polish right up too. Beautifully. Scott, this is what you need for your 250. Now, if this fits on your 250, let me know. This is the muffler Scott should have on his 250. And you bought this adapter where?
Oh, geez. I got it online. I can look it up.
No, I'm saying because I've got another one of these mufflers.
But it's nicely welded.
It's beautiful. Yeah. No. And Dime City sells the opposite. The one that's like one inside the other, like a corkscrew that I used. And they both work fine. There's no problem. All you need to do is get the 2 springs. Yeah, that's perfect. I'm not sure and you'll love the price. The price is the selling feature. Yeah, that's rotatable, so you can get the angle you want.
Yeah.
Couldn't be better.
It goes like this.
Couldn't be better.
This has to go like that, but
you might need a 6 or an 8 millimeter bolt that's real long to go through the...
I got a bunch
If you got it, okay. But you want a bolt with a nice Allen head or something on one side, so you don't want to have a Home Depot bolt there. Nice. That's nice. All right, and so what we decided to do, we're going to put a coat of clear on this in the next day or so. When are you going to California?
I'm leaving next Wednesday.
Oh, so if I do this tomorrow, and if I'm not home, just leave this stuff on the porch and leave me an email.
You leave the stuff.
One last thing here I wanted to show Scott. This is the beginning of that, what I think is similar to the corrosion. And see, it's on both parts. But I just ran on a buffing wheel, no big deal here. I mean, I could have done this by hand. And it came right off, so we're working on your problem, but boy. And as Steve has said, there's probably a million of them on eBay for $20.
Is there so many 250 parts?
Yeah, it's a common bike. Yeah, easy to get parts. Now, I was anxious to see how quickly I'm going to be able to grind down into this surface. But here's where you don't want to have any grease still on the wheel. This is where the problem is. Now, what I thought I'd do is just do some parts of the rim first, just to get an idea how many hours this is going to be. And I'm certainly not going to skimp on it, but yeah, that looks like exactly the surface that I want on everything. Let me show this in a close-up. If you were to paint over this, for sure the paint's going to have an issue with sticking. This is about the grit, I guess 220, I hit it right on the head. That's about the grit I want, but I don't want to have 80 where I have big gouges and everything. Now see, the other thing is to get in all these little areas here, and every one of these is going to be a challenge just to get as much of the casting roughness off and to get as much as, well, I guess we're going to find out here. You see in real time yeah, that's going to come, actually it's going to be pretty good. Now what's going to make this possible is the fact that this wheel is already polished. If we were dealing with if the whole wheel started off like this, if we started with this, we'd need machine sanding and everything. I think we're going to be able to get away with basically just doing the whole wheel wet with 220 and detailing it out as much as possible. And then I can get on with that repair. But now here's where having a tire still on here is really an asset, because the tire is stabilizing it, so I don't, when it's in awkward positions, like when you're doing here and here, it's stabilized like having a part in a vise. So it worked out well for us leaving a tire on until we had the rough sanding done. But then I'm going to have to do the edge on this, and I'm still planning out in my mind how I want to do this. But I think I'm going to be able to do a really, really nice repair on this. Now, the other thing, because from this point on, I'll always put the tire on from this side. So I'll never be prone to put any, the tire rim protectors or anything here. And where this might be vulnerable after I fix it. We're going to see. It'll be an interesting test. Now, the first thing I always try to do on a job that's going to be labor intensive or big like this is, I try to break it up into smaller pieces. In this case, I try to set a goal of if I can get half of this done today, one side of the rim, I'll be thrilled. If circumstances change, and my family circumstances change by the minute sometimes, and what I try to do is just do as much as I can and not ever rush it. Now the reason is there's a lot of little angles and edges and detailing, and they have to be realistically done in this step. And once I put primer on this, I don't want the aluminum of these rough areas popping through. So as an example, right down here in the valley, I've got to get it scratched, I've got to get it smoothed, and as I work my way out to the rim, this is just, there's no other way that I know to do this. It's a labor of love. And before I can do that repair, I want to have this totally sanded down and the tire off. And we're not going to, realistically, because I don't have full days. I have parts of days and half a days, and sometime I'm in a days. But the point is to bite off realistic chunks, see how much you can get done, and if you're not enjoying it, take a break, do something else. Because if you're not enjoying this kind of work, if you're doing it like you're mowing the grass, the quality's not going to be there. I found that, for me anyway, I have to really want to do this, have a passion for it. If I'm just doing it the way I do some jobs that I have to do around the house, it's never going to be as good as it could be. And the ultimate goal is to have that satiny, scratched finish on anything that's going to touch paint. And that'll hopefully develop the bond that we're looking for. Hopefully. That word hopefully is a big word. And as we go through this, I can see there's just a lot of spots. Like in here, I'm going to have to get down in these valleys. I'm going to have to fold the sandpaper back over and over, and this is the only way I know right now, other than making some special tools, to get down into that valley. Otherwise, it's always down in that valley where the paint wants to release from. And again, let's just see how realistic that is. If I don't get that corrosion out of there, that corrosion is going to ultimately be under the paint, and we'll run the risk of getting a bubble under the paint. I've got a real small wire brush. I can get some of that material out of there, because that's all oxidized aluminum. And that's part of the problem. That's part of what we're going to see. So in this case, getting it smoothed out, it's gonna make it that much easier for the paint. I don't have to put 20 coats of primer on there and sand it. It'll be, hopefully the aluminum will be smooth enough. Now I've got almost the whole rim sanded out here. I'm just detailing where the rim meets the spokes, and I'll be ready to move on to doing the spokes. But this kind of work, I say over and over again, people that don't do it, don't have the concept that you really have to have that passion and want to do it. It's difficult work, it's dirty work, but if you enjoy it, wow. It can be very rewarding, that's for sure. And in the end, I always say, you spend your winter doing something like this, in the end, you get to ride the motorcycle. Some parts of this that I can just get the rough imperfections out with the power sander, but then the final part has to be done by hand. I've got the whole rim done. I'm working on the spokes next. So there's a certain amount of these rough areas that are just really not in good shape, but the final sanding, of course, and this is the whole point. Once you're done with the power sander, you've got to go back over it, at least I do, to get it to be really the way I want it to be. And this is just that old thing of time-consuming, labor of love, growing old gracefully, drink a lot of coffee. I don't know what the right saying is. But I know by the end of this day, we'll have at minimum one side of this wheel done. That would be a realistic goal. I'll be looking forward to it. But it's just, well, no matter how you do it, it's just one of those things. You've got to get this scratched. If you were to paint over that right up here, you really are playing high-risk poker with no aces in the deck. This is a really useful tool I found. I have a bunch of these that, well, actually, you could use anything. A dowel would be good, a broomstick, whatever. What these are good for, right in here, there's a radius that's very difficult to get any other way. And so in the course of doing any part, you may need to improvise, make a few special tools. See, this is going to allow me to get up onto the hub here. It's going to make this a little bit easier, a little bit less work. Yeah, that gets right up into a lot of the radiuses just by random. I just stumbled upon this. So this is going to be fine. But again, the whole idea is to get that shine off of there and get that etching. Get that we want that, and I want it to be smooth so I don't have to build up 10 layers of primer at the same time. One thing that's good are these flap wheels for doing some of these areas, but I find the secret to this is to run the drill slow. Don't run it too fast. So we got one side done, one side's etched up, the other side's still undone. Yes, I was looking to see if some mouse came by and did it for me. Even Turbo Steve came by, he didn't do anything. Yeah, anyway. But if you're doing this work alone, you get lonesome. Hey, what can I say? That's why That's why we make videos. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. We're going to get that other side done. Oh, I wish somebody would come and do it. Where's Luciano when you need him? Anyway, and other cool projects are coming very soon. Glenn's already confirmed for his project. Steve's thing, we'll finish that up maybe tomorrow. He's got to bring me some clear hardener. And every time I look around and look, there's another chicken laying an egg over there and waiting to be restored. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.